They can embrace inclusivity without jamming it down somebody's throat to the point where they turn them into a Trump supporter.
At Disney blowing up, getting into a big fight with Ron DeSantis over the sex education for toddlers law. You had the Dylan Mulvaney thing, this crazy thing where a trans woman was drinking a beer half naked in a bubble bath. Target with their flamboyant displays during Pride Month. Why did corporate America do something kind of absurd? You're a CEO, you should be worrying about making money, not being a sort of helper of the progressive movement.
So joining us now on Open Book is a best-selling author, veteran financial journalist Charles Gasparino. The title of the book is Go Woke, Go Broke. And by the way, I actually agree with a lot of what you're saying in this book, and I enjoyed reading it. And I am actually proud to call you a friend, Charlie Gasparino, even though you do take shots at me in the press. And I just want to point out that that's what true Italians do to each other. Okay, if you're not in a ball breaking exercise, what's the sense of living? That's my personal view.
Yeah. Listen, I call him as I see him. I think you're a good guy, and I like you. I don't like all your politics, but
It's fine. You don't have to like all my politics. When Trump goes after your wife, we'll see what you act like when Trump goes after your wife, because you're not an Italian from the neighborhood. So we'll see what Charlie Gasparino does when Trump goes after his wife. But that,
Anthony, you should know, Trump goes after me.
Right.
I mean, he called me.
Well, that's fine. No. Going after you is fine. Going after me is fine. You don't go after civilians, okay? You know that.
I don't talk about people's wives. I actually adore your wife, so
that's right. Exactly. She's a very nice person. She never bothered anybody. Right, exactly. And she loves you. All right, let's go to the book, okay? I mean, this is why you got to have a few Italians on the podcast, okay? All right, let's go to the book, okay? So you wrote a great book. I mean, this book, I would tell every Democrat that I know, from the top to the bottom, including AOC, please read the book. And when you're done reading the book, tell me what you guys are doing right and wrong. Because if they lose this election, okay, and this is being recorded about 5 or 6 days before the election, it'll come out after the election. But if they lose the election, betting markets are for Trump. If they lose the election, what you're saying in this book, in my opinion, is the reason why they will have lost the election. And they may not lose the election. Who the hell knows? But explain why you decided to write this. And first of all, explain the premise of Go Woke, Go Broke. And then explain why you decided to write this. And then we'll talk a little more about
and
what's in the book.
I should premise this as this is not like some sort of a pro-Trump book, just so you know. Even though Trump is always in the background of everything we wrote, I'm fairly critical of him and how he comported himself as president, which I will continue to do, even though, I guess you could say net, I'm kind of leaning towards him as opposed to the other side. And he did call me a never Trumper recently because I was critical of his spending and things of that nature. But be that as I say, and I actually know the guy a long time. I know him longer than you. And I remember telling you, it's not going to end well with you and him. I told you that. And because
I remember you telling me that. I was not.
And I liked the guy, but I was always like, just be careful here. But be that as it may, let's get to the book. The book, okay, so this is how I kind of stumbled on this in a weird way. I was covering the regional banking crisis, Silicon Valley Bank, and I had an agent that came to me and said, you should really write about all these banks that are blowing up. But this is in early 2023. There's you're a financial writer, but this is even better. I mean, this Silicon Valley Bank, if you look at who ran it, while they were mismanaging their balance sheet, or looked like they were mismanaging the balance sheet, they clearly didn't understand their asset and liability matches. They were engaging in all this weird stuff like DEI training. And they were really obsessed with ESG and all these sort of extraneous things, this woke stuff. And we can maybe write a book about how wokeness on a corporate level, which people just started looking at, destroyed a bank. And I said, okay, so I started looking at it, and then a confluence of things happened. I mean, you had Disney blowing up, getting into a big fight with Ron DeSantis over the the sex education for toddlers law. Bob Chapek using shareholder money to oppose that, and like a sort of outrage and a backlash to that. You had the Dylan Mulvaney thing, this crazy thing where a Budweiser, a trans woman, was drinking a beer half naked in a bubble bath to, try to appeal to God knows what customer base, but they did it. Target with their flamboyant displays of during Pride Month, ESG and Larry Fink. Larry Fink's a guy I like a lot, but he got embroiled in this mess with ESG, became a sort of lightning rod for the conservative movement, and it all coalesced at once. And I said, "There's a bigger book here." And what I wanted to do with this is say, why did corporate America do something kind of like absurd? I mean, if you think about it, within the bounds of ethics and legality, I'm not saying that that you should maximize profits by dumping toxins in the Hudson River, but you're a CEO. You should be worrying about making money, not being not being a sort of helper of the progressive movement on all these various cultural issues. These things should be hashed out in the board, in Congress, in a public debate during a presidential election, at the kitchen table. What you want to teach your kids. It should not be Jamie Dimon, weighing in on this stuff, and Bob Chapek. And while and what I wanted to do is a journalistic account of this. I spent a lot of time with Larry Fink, again, someone I respect and like. Try to get his side of the story. I spent a lot of time with the people at Budweiser. It's a company called InBev, AB InBev, which owns Anheuser-Busch now. The old Bush family doesn't own it. I spent some time with their representatives trying to understand how this whole thing, how did Dylan Mulvaney get it? It went from the Clydesdales, literally one of the most poignant commercials I've ever seen was after 9/11. The Clydesdales walk up and look at the Twin Towers being missing and take a knee. And if you look at this iconic commercial, Budweiser commercial, you can't help but get shivers. You went from that to Dylan Mulvaney giggling in a bubble bath. And, how did this happen? And that's kind of what the book tried to do. I tried to do it like journalistically, Anthony. I tried to do it as somebody who is, I'm not an asshole when it comes to this stuff. I don't hate trans people. A friend of mine is essentially living with a trans woman. I think adults should be what they want to be. I'm a libertarian when it comes to all this stuff. I don't think companies should be part of this coercive business, trying to change the culture of the country. That's my POV. Within the bounds of that POV, I tried to be journalistic here, and you can see I don't pull punches on anybody.
So I read the book, and I'm going to summarize for you my thoughts. I want you to say, I got this right, I got this wrong.
Okay.
So the premise of the book is that we have social and cultural disagreement in the society, and certain parts of the society want their culture imposed on the entire society. So as an example, they want my 7-year-old that's in the second grade to be told that if he's transgender, you're okay telling the teacher, not telling the parent. And many people in the country, and by the way, including myself, I actually don't want that. Okay. So, and I'm all for transgenderism, and I'm all for, sexual orientations that are different from mine. I have no problem with that, but I don't want that imposed on me culturally.
I agree.
And so, a result of which, when you start to do that, you start to lose fans, you start to lose consumers, you start to lose what I would say is probably the center of America. Is that the premise of the book?
It is, but it goes beyond that. It raises the question why companies got involved in this, why public companies. The last place you would think this culture war would be fought is the boardroom of Bank of America or JP Morgan or Larry Fink's BlackRock. Why did they go there? Or Target or Budweiser in particular, right? Mm-hmm. Why did they go there? What were the forces that forced them to go there? And listen, Anthony, this is not a textbook, as you know. This is I use anecdotes. I try to write it narratively. I try to make it lively. But I
Well,
tried.
the stuff with Larry Fink is awesome because
Yeah,
let me tell you what I love about Larry Fink. Okay, if Larry Fink gets something wrong, Charles, he's like, I got something wrong, and he switches topic. I was with Larry Fink in the lobby. I'm not making this up. Four Seasons Hotel in Abu Dhabi. He walked over to me. Bitcoin sucks.
right.
I don't know why you own Bitcoin, and I own a lot of Circle. I own a lot of USD. I said, well, I'm sorry. I just don't think it sucks. 3 years later, he's like, okay, you know what? I got that wrong, and I'm launching a Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah. Now
I,
there is.
I think the guy. I love the guy for that reason. I wish more Americans, if they get something wrong, just say, "Look, I got it wrong. I'm changing course."
Yeah, and when he changed course with Bitcoin, he changed course away from woke. It was part of that transformation where he realized he went way too far, proselytizing too much on ESG, environmental social government investing. He tried to change attitudes. And I talked to him in the book. He says, listen, I probably should have focused not so much on the S and the G, which involves very controversial stuff like diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is essentially quotas, a lot of the sort of far left wokeism, and should have focused on the E part, which is there a transformational economy around something known as zero, not a coercive economy, but a transformation, something like the internet around this whole notion of net zero. Like, can you? And I listen. I as a journalist, I can see where there could be. Right. I mean, is there something transformational about alternative power, ways to generate power? Because we're going to need as much power as we can if we're going to, do AI and Bitcoin mine. Larry's very much open to advances in nuclear power, which we need. It's clean. I mean, that's the sort of stuff I think he recognizes he should have focused on, and not in a sort of nanny state way. And I give him credit in the book for going that way. The last quarter of the book is about how woke is breaking. I use Larry Fink as an example of that, but many others. I mean, listen, Bob Chapek gets blown out of Disney. Bob Iger now is back running it. Well, he's the guy that brought wokeness to Disney. Is now doing a 180 on wokeness. When was the last time you saw, in a cartoon, Disney cartoon for children, two same sex characters kissing? Now, again, I don't pay. Here's a weird thing about this. I don't pay attention. If I was walking in a Target and I saw rows upon rows of pride displays, I would just like walk by there, go to the place that I want to buy my sneakers or wherever, and go home. I wouldn't care. But I'm not a parent with two kids, and Target's audience is very Target. Its target group that it markets to is very middle class. Mom with two kids in the stroller, and you have to explain what a tuck friendly bathing suit is to little Johnny. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's not me, and that's the revulsion I had. The other thing is, Anthony, what really kind of stoked me on this thing was how billionaire CEOs were literally sort of chastising middle America in so many ways, and particularly after George Floyd. I mean, I get into that. I quoted Brian Moynihan directly, Jamie Dimon directly, David Solomon. I mean, let's be really clear here. A cop in Minneapolis killed somebody, George Floyd, who was in a convenience store, doing something illegal. He was trying to pass a check. He did not deserve the death penalty for that. Okay, did not. We can debate all day whether Derek Chauvin and company used excessive force. I wouldn't have handled it that way, but I'm not a cop. Okay, I'm just telling you that that single instance, which occurred when the country was locked down and losing its mind, caused some of the biggest riots and social disturbances ever. We had mayhem in the streets. We had the left trying to frame that as evidence that the entire nation is systemically racist, that there's something wrong with a nation that is so much less systemically racist than any other nation. I'm not saying there's zero problems here, but just because of that one instance. And then you just see Jamie Dimon. Oh, we have all these problems. I need to do $30 billion for racial equity, and Brian Moynihan and this one, and David Solomon, when he's not spinning records in the Hamptons, is lecturing construction workers about their white privilege. And I thought that was the most disgusting display of virtue signaling I ever saw in my life, and I'm glad I documented it in this book.
So, okay. So, I mean, this is where you and I have violent agreement, Charles. Violent agreement. So let me put my strategist hat on for a second, and I want you to be a Democratic strategist, and you're in the boardroom, and you have all the powers that be in the Democratic Party in the room, and you wanted to help them. I'm not saying you want to, Charlie Gasparino, but I want you to role play with me. What would you say from your research for this book to them, and how would you try to resonate with them? What would you try to do?
Well, I think they wouldn't need my advice because if you notice how Kamala Harris is handling her campaign, you know, back in 2019, she was the second coming of Bernie Sanders. Now, if you take her at her word, and you might take her at her word, I wouldn't. She's like this moderate, Bill Clinton esque Democrat. She's not woke. She once said we need to be more woke. She once, opined about the great need for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, and it was a little grating to see somebody like Kamala Harris talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, how we should divide up the pie based on intersectionality when she's a woman of color but came from a very privileged background, a PhD father, a biologist mom. I mean, my old man worked 3 jobs, and you're telling me that, I have white privilege. I mean, I don't know, he's a construction worker, a bartender. That's some privilege there, right? Got me my first job, by the way, at the Silver Moon restaurant in Yorktown Heights, washing dishes. There's some white privilege.
I remember the Silver Moon.
There's some.
You were washing the dishes. That's the reason why I got ptomaine poisoning.
That's it.
You were
Yep,
washing the
yep.
dishes.
I poisoned your food, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, this is so ridiculous on its face, but she's not engaging in that right now.
Right.
And that's the reason. And if she pulls this out, one of the reasons why is because she didn't go there and she didn't embrace wokeness. She sees it's a loser. By the way, wokeness might sell. And by the way, part of the book, as you know, I interviewed Mark Cuban. I mean, we have a long conversation, which he explains why wokeness sells. And I was like, well, Mark, she goes, well, look, these big companies, look at Apple's woke, and you're look how much profit. I said, Mark, when I download Joe Rogan on my Spotify and my iPhone, I'm essentially virtue signaling. You're saying that's a political statement, pro woke, and he couldn't really answer that question.
Yeah. Well, he's making a different point. I read that part of the book, and I wanted to ask you about that. So he's trying to say something different, which I would like you to try to intersect your thoughts and his. I think what he's trying to say in my conversations with him is that we want to be inclusive. Ultimately, and I think you agree with this. The way you and I grew up, we don't see color, you and me. We want to be inclusive. And we're trying to figure out a way to add to diversity in employment, add to diversity in a business. And I know if I hire somebody, regardless of race, color, creed, sexual orientation, I've got a bigger pool of talent that I'm drawing from. I think that's what he's trying to say, but it doesn't translate. And so I'm wondering why it's not translating, I guess, is my question to you.
Because in the land of the woke, intersectionality trumps your economic disadvantage, particularly if you're a white guy, and it's patently unfair. It's right now it's illegal based on what the Supreme Court ruled, and it's stupid. I mean, the fact of the matter is, we're way beyond like saying a PhD from Harvard who is black. We're going to ignore him, and he can figure out differential equations in his sleep. But let's hire some stupid white guy. I mean, that's not that doesn't happen on any sort of competitive business that I've ever seen, and I've been covering competitive businesses now for 35 years, and you know it, and I know it. The diversity that he seeks is racial bean counting, which is bad for the country, and it's bad for business, and it's irrational, and it doesn't work, and it's sowing the seeds of incredible amounts of divisiveness, and it's allowing people. If you think Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy, it's electing him as president, and if you go there, this is what you're going to get. And they went there, meaning the Democratic Party, people like Cuban, and now they're getting what they may literally have on Tuesday after this. You said that this is running after the election. They may have their worst nightmare as president. Whether he is going to be a nightmare or not, we can debate. I don't think so. I think there's going to be some smart people around him. I think he's going to be okay on certain issues. On certain issues, not so okay. He's going to be, but remember what happened. This is a backlash to what the sort of absurdity that Cuban was pushing on people. Listen, if you're Ben and Jerry's, you can virtue signal all you want. The niche, it's a niche product of ice cream. If you're Target and you're going to try to change the cultural values of your core audience, which, by the way, is multicultural, middle class, and it may skew heavily working class white, but it's still multicultural. They don't have those same values, and you proselytizing to them is ridiculous. It's not your job. Your job is to enhance shareholder value, not to be part of the culture wars. And if you go there, you face the backlash, which Brian Cornell, as you saw in my book, did, and they still are. Budweiser's still the number 3 beer, I believe, or Bud Light. It's not number 1 anymore. Disney stock hasn't moved in 10 years. Look up the chart. It might even be down over the past 10 years. That's pretty amazing for a company stock that was the darling of the markets for many years. Also, I wanted to point out, Anthony, in the book, this is a much more difficult story to tell than just woke is bad, unwoke is good. I can see the notion of diversity, why it's good, okay? Not at the heavy hand of a gun, but diversity, openness to this. Trans people are friends, our neighbors, our employees. They deserve every right that we have. Don't care what they deserve it. They, by the way, not just deserve it. Law requires it. Just remember that. That said, the sort of cultural Marxism of corporate America, and at times, particularly after 2020, it was almost Marxist. It was revolting, and somebody had to call them out on it. I know Vivek did a book about it. It was, I read it. It was much more theoretical. This book is really, this is anecdote.
I'm sending your book to lots of people. Okay, Senator Gillibrand. I'm sending it to Schumer. They won't read it probably, Charlie, but they should read it because there's something in the book that I think resonates. They can embrace inclusivity without jamming it down somebody's throat to the point where they turn them into a Trump supporter. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I've got people that say to me, hey, I understand your issues with Donald Trump, but I don't want this stuff jammed down my throat, and he's not going to jam it down my throat. And that's it. It's really that it's weird because, you and I study the economy. The economy's not doing that badly, okay? Certain sectors of the economy are hurting. I'm not saying they're not. I understand. Lower and middle income people are hurting because of what happened with the inflation, but it's improving. And a lot of that was systemic to COVID.
If you lived through the 70s, which I'm a little older than you, I have. And I remember.
I was there with you, buddy.
Okay. So, economies improve during times of inflation and high prices, but you have to work harder to keep up. And I think there's two economies here. We have a mutual friend, Max Myers at CNBC.
Yeah.
And we'd be at Ilio's restaurant and he'd be like, how can you say the economy is horrible? Look at this place. Look, it's packed. People are buying $1,000 bottles of wine, which is true. And by the way, Ilio's is a great place. I love it. It's a great vibe. And people are like spending there. I said, but Max, this is the speculator economy. If you know even the basics of economics, you know what happened in Argentina and places where they had rampant inflation. You can speculate. You can hedge the inflation through speculation in the markets. If you're rich, if you're poor, you can't, or working class, you can't. It's tougher. And I think that's another thing that wokeness sort of blinded the media to what was transitory inflation, which really wasn't. And, there's a great scene in the book, I think, with James Gorman, who I think is one of the smartest guys on Wall Street. He was the head of Morgan Stanley, which, Morgan Stanley's broke. Yeah,
love great James.
He's now the chairman of the board of Disney. He's going to pick Bob Iger's successor. And I was having dinner with James, and he said, and this was early on. This was right after the lockdowns where people were saying, is this inflation transitory or not? And James said, don't believe the bullshit. This is not transitory. We went wicked on this thing. And, it was interesting that the media didn't buy it because it was so woke. It was afraid of attacking Biden on this thing. And then all of a sudden, everybody woke up and they realized that, prices were, we had 9% inflation. It was just so nuts. And you see unwokening now, fast forward, in the media playing out in interesting ways. Jeff Bezos, I think, wrote, listen, I've written critically about Jeff Bezos and Amazon.
Yeah.
I don't believe they should be broken up like Lena Khan. But I mean, listen, he wrote something really sort of, I thought, sensible.
Yeah.
Why should I? Well, we need more reporting. And
Yeah.
by
So
I saw Bob Woodward, who I know a little bit. I actually know Carl Bernstein a lot better. Say that this is horrible that he did that, but in their heart of hearts, those guys would write about anybody. They know there's a new woke type of reporter out there that's populating the Washington Post that is activist. They know it. They just don't want to say it. I believe. I mean, and Bezos is basically saying, let's get back to the middle. And by the way, if I was to write, a last an epilogue, the unwokening of media might be part of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I got to transition to my 5 words, which I'm going to ask you in a second. But I just want to ask this last question. You believe that the world is changing? Meaning, you said unwoke. So you believe that the realization by somebody like James Gorman, Larry Fink, we're going back to the middle?
I think so. Listen,
Okay. I
I
me
don't
too.
know.
I think so as well. I'm
A
just
lot of this,
curious what you're.
Anthony, a lot of this, will have to be, if Kamala Harris gets elected, will the real Kamala emerge, the woke one, or the one that doesn't mention that now? Because a lot of this is directed from the White House to the administrative state. That said, I think you even if she does go there and basically lying for the last 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
if she does go there, there's going to be a pushback from business because you can't have a mass product and
Mm-hmm.
sell to the masses and pick a side like this. You're going to inevitably piss off at least 50% of the population or more who doesn't like this. I mean, listen, people,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are people voting for Kamala Harris that hate wokeness. They just despise Donald Trump even more. I mean, that's kind of where we
Mm-hmm.
are with this stuff. And I think you might be in that category.
Yeah, I mean, look. To me, it's very personal with Trump. You don't go after my family members. Okay,
I got you.
now.
So
I'm living in the neighborhood I grew up in. I've had a great life because I live in America. I tried to help you, gave you $1 million to your campaign, hundreds of hours of media advocacy. You fired me, had no problem with it, was loyal to you after you fired me. I said one thing you don't like. You start attacking my wife.
yeah, I know.
Forget it.
He said,
Forget it.
I
Forget
said,
it.
okay, so
It's not even a conversation. It's not even a
I'll
conversation.
give you my example. I've known this
Yeah.
guy forever. I
Yeah.
like his kids. I know Eric.
Charlie, he's a jerk off. Okay, you know what a jerk off is? He's a jerk off. He shouldn't be a jerk off like him. Should not be the president of the United States. I know you're probably voting for him, but he's a jerk off.
I'm probably not going to vote. But here's the thing: he's not a jerk off. He's a guy that his mouth runs before his brain stops it from running. And I know his kids. He's got good kids. He's basically a decent person.
You know what his kid said to me? I'm sorry that he did that to you. Please don't make it a fight with us. You want to fight with my father? No problem.
Yeah.
I like his kids.
But let
You
me
never hear me say a bad word about any of his
he
kids. I
flies
like his kids.
he flies off the handle, and
Yeah, he's a
I
jerk.
mean,
You
there
don't
is
want somebody that flies off the handle to be president, Charles. I'm just letting you know, okay?
sleep or someone who doesn't know where. I mean, we're dealing with bad absolutes here in some respects, but
Okay.
I'm just saying that he flies off the handle. Okay,
All right.
but let's.
I don't want this to be about. I think he's a jerk off, and you don't think he's a jerk off. Let's go.
Right.
Let's go to the book, okay? Because I think he's a jerk off. You don't think he's a jerk off. That's what makes America. Okay, so I have 5 words that me and my producer culled from your book, and I want you. It's almost like a Rorschach test. I want you to react to them. Give me 1 or 2 sentences. Okay? Ready?
Yep.
If I say the two words corporate America, you say what?
Too big.
Too big.
Too
Okay,
big and too powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't want Amazon broken up, but you just said too big. Okay.
No. I want them to go back to doing what they should do, which was make profits, employ people, and not engage in the culture wars.
Stay out of the culture. Okay, got it. Okay,
Don't do that.
So this is a good second question then. Ready? Responsibility, Charles.
Your responsibility is to make money within the boundaries of ethics and legality. You shouldn't be polluting the Hudson River to save money, disposing waste. If you're, I think GE got nailed on that back in the '80s. I remember that's not what Milton Friedman, who's the founder of shareholder capitalism, professed. That's what we go back to.
Okay, left. I say the word left. You say what?
That's a good question because it's changing so much. I mean, I grew up with liberals who were incredibly open-minded, who would be like, "Oh, Charlie's just another conservative." Okay, explain yourself. The left right now, that was when I was in college and journalism school at the University of Missouri, a lot of liberals there, but they were open-minded. The left has become totalitarian and it's become progressive and woke. And I think that's where this problem is sort of manifests itself, and it does start at the university level.
Okay, I say right.
I don't think Nazis are right wingers. I think somebody on the right would be somebody comfortable with Bill Buckley.
Okay. All right, now the last word, Charlie. You have the last word. I say woke.
A pernicious mind virus that needs to be rooted out from American society tomorrow. In the same way, and I'm not saying that there should be laws that prevent wokeness. I want a debate, but we should not be closing down the debate on wokeness. I think Elon buying X has opened up the debate in ways that will eventually destroy wokeness as a governing philosophy.
Okay. The title of the book is Go Woke, Go Broke. It's by Charlie Gasparino, who I consider a dear friend, even though he's a ball-breaking MF. I do love you, Charlie, and I appreciate you joining the show today.
Thanks for having me. Good luck.
My next guest, Mom, my guest this week was a guy named Charlie Gasparino. I'm getting a lot of Italians on the show recently, but he hates the woke culture. So, Mom, a transgender advertising for Bud Light, and then the beer sales dropped off. Do you think the culture war in the United States is making people miserable?
I think that we're rocking. I think the United States is rocking, and I think that Trump caused a lot of it when he won the election. And I think that if he wins the election again, he's going to have this whole world upside down. That's my opinion.
Okay, because why?
Because I think he's a bully, and I think that when bullies are so strong, he's a strong bully. There's an insecureness, and that's why they're a bully, because they want to make themselves think that they're strong, but they're not strong doing that. I don't think they're strong doing that.
Okay, and so it's almost like toxic, right?
Yeah, I think he is toxic.
Okay, so who'd you vote for, Ma? You vote?
Me, but I voted for Kamala, whatever the hell her name is.
Okay, whatever the hell her name is. This is what I love about you. Okay, but even the way you pronounce her name just makes it even more joyous. Okay, so you voted for her because you really okay. You think what?
I think that she has a lot of intelligent people supporting her. I think it was dropped on her lap without her knowledge, and she got a little fumbly for a while. But I think that she's a good listener, and the people that really love her, that have chutzpah, they will guide her through it for the first year, and after that, she'll be perfect.
All right.
That's how I feel.
All right, so let's see
my opinion.
All right, good. So let's see what happens. We had a conversation about the Madison Square Garden rally that Trump did. Did you watch any of that, Mom?
Yeah, I think he said it It's a terrible thing to say, and I am going to be 88 in January, but I do think he sounded very dictatorial when he spoke.
Right.
I said he did not look at the life of people. He looked at himself. He's very narcissistic, and he was very dictatorial when he spoke. I don't like that.
Right. And so you're worried that he doesn't care about the little people, right? He really just only cares about himself, right?
About himself, but I really believe that you outshined him, and that's why he fired you, the stupid jerk, because Ryan Lizza has been in the paper.
Oh, we're back on Ryan Lizza.
He really was.
So my editor wanted to cut you out with the Ryan Lizza stuff, but I told her it was okay because you're an Italian mother. Of course you're going to go after Ryan Lizza, right?
Of course. He's got a bad karma. It shows who he was.
Bad karma.
And Trump magnified you instead of him.
Does Trump have bad karma, Mom? Does Trump have bad karma?
He will have bad karma, of course.
Yeah. So, but he seems to be getting away with a lot of stuff. But you think at the end he's not going to get away with it? That's what you think, right?
Yeah, I think it will come back to him. I don't know why he's so chauvinistic. Like he's over the top. I mean, take it easy. Mm-hmm. You had your day in the sun. Take it easy. Give this woman a chance to do her job the right way. She's got a lot of people backing her and showing her the road. She got hit with this, unexpected, and she was fumbling in the beginning, but I don't think she's fumbling anymore. She's already grown into it. Mm-hmm. So I follow her very much because I think that she is a female and she does believe in abortion. And if my granddaughter came across somebody that was a criminal or insane and raped her, I would want her to have an abortion. Okay. And I do believe in abortion. I'm Catholic, but I believe in abortion. Yes,
all right, me too. I understand. Who are you having lunch with today, Ma? Because you have your regular schedule. So what are we doing today?
I have a crowd of people that I have lunch with that I went to school with since kindergarten, some of them, and I have a very good time with them. Okay. And you have afforded me in December to take them all to your restaurant. And they're all jumping up and down, but they're old.
All right, so you're getting a party bus, and people are going to be with their walkers and stuff, right? I know what you like. Right, you're taking them to the Hunt and Fish Club, right? In the party bus?
Right. I'm taking them to
go
the
enjoy
Hunt
yourself.
Fish Club,
good.
And you have awarded me a gift of being able to do that. But I think that in my lifetime, I'm not going to live forever, and I don't feel always so good lately. But I think you have let me live a life of wonderful life. You have supported me in every way you possibly can.
Okay.
Not only about money, but about your love. Okay. And the other two kids love me too, so I feel very lucky that I am surrounded by love with my children and my grandchildren. Definitely. Okay. I feel very lucky about that.
Go enjoy lunch, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right, love you, Ma. All right, bye.
I love you, honey.
All right, bye.
Bye.
It's pretty smart, though. I so identify with you because you pulled yourself out of the soup, but you did get this help, right? And sometimes we have to acknowledge this stuff, right? We get so much help from so many different people in life, and you write beautifully about the help that you got. So joining us now on Open Book, and this is someone I was really looking forward to interviewing, is Vernon Turner. He's a former professional football player and now an author with a mission to change lives. And he's written a fascinating book. The title of the book is Beyond the Limits, Finding My Purpose. Vernon, I read this book very quickly, and I saw myself in the book. I saw my kids in the book. I see America in this book, by the way, because this is such an aspirational book. But before we get into the book, who is, for my viewers and listeners, our viewers and listeners, who is Vernon Turner?
Wow, that is such a broad, loaded question, because Vernon Turner, I'm hoping, I'm working towards being someone that has acknowledged everything that came upon him, that learned from everything that he's gone through. And I want to leave a legacy that, people can say, you know what, that's a pretty good guy. He's a good dude. And I got 3 kids. I got 3 amazing kids. Ashley, Darius, and Liam, and they're my world. And I'm be honest with you, if it weren't for them, I don't know if I would even be here today. It's um, I just want to be remembered as someone who gave it everything he had and everything that he did.
All right, but it was a rough start for Vernon Turner, right? I mean, you write about it. Okay, you get yourself. You're basically raising yourself. And what am I getting wrong about Vernon Turner? You're shooting in the dark about your life. You're an incredibly talented athlete. You're also an autodidact. You're teaching yourself what to do. So you're literally mentoring yourself, you're self-parenting. It comes with its highs and lows, right? Because you've got to exaggerate your self-confidence to boost yourself up. And then there's also moments of despair. And you write very beautifully about how you react to all these things in life. But you're here. I mean, one of the things about your book that you graced me with your book because of its authenticity. When I read the book, I was like, all right, this is a real dude. This is a guy that's bleeding. You were bleeding on some of those pages. And so how does somebody that is bleeding, what is the self-talk? What is the thought process to get them to pull themselves together and to live the best version of themselves?
I have to circle back to almost to the beginning. Had I not lived this life, Mooch, I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe it if I didn't live it myself.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at a person that, was born and raised in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Started off with myself and my little brother living in my grandmother's house with a crap load of cousins. My grandmother was the grand poobah of grandmoms, man. She had 10 kids and raised them herself. I mean, she was a badass. She really was. And I think I got my strength from her because I
Mm-hmm.
rarely saw my mom at that time, 6.5, 7 years old. She was always out. And that's another amazing woman that it breaks my heart to even just think about all the things that she went through. But I have so much more love and respect for her now than ever before. But going what she went through back then, um, you know, it was funny because she would go out and she would leave for a few days and come back and she would greet. I would run to the door and she would bypass me and go to my younger brother. And it got to a point to where it was like I used to hide when she would come home so I wouldn't experience that. So it all started there as far as that self-reflection. And as years went
Mm-hmm.
on, when I found out, how I came into this world, it just made it even that much worse. And I felt like trash. My mom was assaulted when she was 18 years old by 3 guys, and I'm the result of that. And she told me she told me what happened to her. And prior to that, um, I thought my mom really just didn't care for me, or something was up. I knew something was way off. But when she told me that, um, the first thing that came to my mind was, man, I'm garbage. God dang it, I'm garbage. And I would not even look at myself in the mirror, Mooch. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. And for years, that was me. I was braiding hair, cooking dinners, changing diapers at age 9 because my mom was still wigged off on the drugs. Now, this story, I'm skipping around, but this story is it's a head scratcher because my mom was not only doing drugs, she was out there prostituting out in the streets. That's why she was out all those nights doing what she was doing. And she meets this guy, this Italian white dude from Staten Island, New York, man. And this cat fell in love with my mom. I mean, I wouldn't believe it if I didn't live this damn thing, man. He falls in love with this lady. a prostitute of a different race with 2 kids, moves moves her into his home in Staten Island, which that's a completely different story, and with her 2 kids. And me, prior to us leaving, I was in my head, I was told that, hey, this is not good. You're going into an all-white neighborhood. They're going to try to, if they can kill you and get away with it, they would. I mean, because back then in the 70s, it was pretty bad, man. The race, the racial tension. So in my head, I thought this cat was bad. I thought he was a bad guy. And Mooch, I was so wrong about that guy. That is my hero. That is a guy that had unconditional love. I had to write a segment in the book about this dude, that he just unconditionally loved this woman, and he did everything he could to help her. And from there, I was wondering, like, why did my mom keep me? Because she had an opportunity to leave me and my brother with my grandmother. She had a chance. She said, no, they're coming with me. They're coming with me. And it took me decades to figure out this whole dynamic of my family and what my mom went through and what my dad went through and my mental psyche, because there were times, and I'll skip around, age 15, my mom passes away because I wished her dead. I thought I murdered my mother, man. 72 hours.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
No, you're right about it. I mean, you're right about your self-responsibility, which thankfully you mentally adjusted to disclaim, thankfully. You know, I gotta say this to you because you and I are born on the same day. Did you know that? You're born on the 6th of January.
I was going
right,
to mention that. I was going to mention that.
right?
Yes.
And so you're my birthday brother, okay? And I was having a great time on my birthday until Trump stole my birthday. Okay, he also stole your birthday, right? Because he's insurrects the Capitol on the 6th of January, which is your and my birthday.
Yeah.
And when I think about my life, okay, and I think about the tribulations that I've had in my life or whatever the difficulties that I've had, what's gotten me through is forgiveness. Particularly someday you and I are going to have a beer and I'll tell you about the way I grew up. And I'll tell you about some of the trials and tribulations, and I'll tell you about some of the drug addiction in my family and some of the issues that my parents had, etc. And, I so identify with you because you pulled yourself out of the soup, but you did get this help, right? And we don't, sometimes we have to acknowledge this stuff, right? We get so much help from so many different people in life. And you write beautifully about the help that you got, but I want to say this to you, and I want you to respond to it. Okay, Jackie Robinson, who's one of my heroes. If you go into my office, you'll see I've got a picture of Jackie and I've got a picture of Muhammad Ali, two of my heroes, in my office. And why are they my heroes? Because they didn't give a shit. You understand what I mean? They did not give a shit. They were like, okay, I'm going to do this. And what did Jackie say? That your life really doesn't have that much meaning until you're in the process of serving others. It's one of the best lines ever. And I tell people, if you're depressed or you're unhappy, go help somebody. Okay, lift a kid out of poverty, or go, to a soup kitchen, or find a family member that's not doing well and see if you can help them out. Respond to that. Am I right about that?
No, you're absolutely right, because the whole purpose of me writing that second book, Beyond the Limits, Finding My Purpose, because for so long I didn't have a purpose here in my heart. I didn't have a purpose. That's how come it came close so many times, Mooch, that I would take myself out, by prescription pills, because I did not see that purpose. Why in the hell did the big guy keep me on this damn earth? Why did my mom make the decision to keep me? All of these things, it's funny. I gotta pivot a little bit because of something I just said just now, just this second. I have countless inbox messages asking me all sorts of questions about my journey after the National Football League released that documentary on me. And one of the questions that they asked was chilling to me. And it was such an easy answer for me. And that was, oh, so I have to ask you, Mr. Turner, you're pro-life, right? You're pro-life. And I stared at it, the question, and I had to reply. And my reply was, no, I am pro-choice. I am pro-choice. And I replied, and they replied almost immediately. And I didn't elaborate. How could you say that by the way you came into this world? I said, precisely. I said, imagine. I said, let me let you know my thought process. Imagine if my mom, she was brutally raped by 3 scumbags. Imagine if she was forced to keep me and she didn't want me. She was forced to keep me. Okay. Now, how do you think I would have turned out? She was forced to keep me. Even if I was even if I was put up for adoption, what are the chances of me going into a good family or going into a family that was solid? I said, so my thing is that my mom was strong enough to make that decision on her own to keep me. And that was one of the things that I thought about that made me, I think all the time, man. I think especially now more than ever, and my purpose, I found out, is that I had this story, this unbelievable story, this unbelievable journey of mine that I'm finally getting the courage to share. I am so vulnerable. I am so weak sometimes but it's not about me. It's never been about me. It's about why I'm on this earth. And this is to share and help share my story with as many people as I can and to help as many people as I can. I self-published my book. I did that for a couple of reasons, but mainly because I had to make sure that my family was okay with what I'm putting out there, because there's a lot of stuff that my family were not aware of that I wrote in that book. And I made 5 copies on both books, and I sent it to my family. And if they weren't okay with what was in that book, I wasn't going to publish. So I needed that control. And number 2, it was not about the monetary gain of it for me. I could have sold my rights. I could have done it all. I could have done all of that stuff. But I needed that control. That was the main source of me doing the way I did it. The beyond the limits, finding my purpose. Mooch, I had to push beyond what I thought my limits were to find my purpose, if that makes any sense to you. I had to, it's like, I had no business playing in the National Football League. I was not that good of a football player. I wasn't. It was the circumstances that were placed before me that if I did not pull that off, Mooch, my family my brothers and sisters were going to foster care. So anyone who came up against me, if they weren't willing and ready to die on the field, it was a wrap, dude. I had them because I was ready to die. And I didn't tell this to anybody. I didn't tell this to anybody.
I've watched films of you, okay, and I get the intensity. I get the killer instincts that you have. I have to ask you this question, okay? I hope you don't mind. Why'd you seek me out? Now, this is one of the beauties of social media. We also we talk about the harangue of social media and the negativity. We're going to get into negativity. I had to channel it in a second, but you reached out to me on social media. I'm going to tell you, I actually knew who you were, okay, because of the documentary and some other things, and so I responded very quickly. And then you sent me a copy of your book, and then I read the book. I'm like, I told my producer, we got to get you on the show. But why? Why'd you reach out to me?
Well, Mooch, my circle is extremely small because I can't do BS. My tact is challenging. I'm a straight shooter. I'm a believer of common sense. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a common sense cat. anyone that represents us, they need to make common sense. They need to have morals. They need to have values, empathy, compassion, understanding, trust, integrity. You got to have those components. And there's some of the things that's going on in this country today. You know where I'm going. So I saw you. It was when you were attached to 45, and you did an interview, and you were a condescending, arrogant bastard as far as I was concerned, and I did not like you at all. So some time goes on, and you detached, and I don't know what day it was, but you were on CNN, and you did an interview. And dude, I'm telling you, your transparency, your ownership, your authenticity in regards to you being real on what you were saying. I sat there and watched that whole damn thing from start to finish, man. I said, all right, dude, you got me. You got me. So I immediately went on Twitter and I sent you a message, and I think I told you, I didn't like you. And but
I usually enjoy the people that dislike me the most, actually, because I learn from the people that dislike me the most. No. Hey, listen, I grew up in an Italian family. There were racists in my family. I'm not going to bullshit you, okay? Because there's racism in our society.
Yeah.
We're roughly the same age. I got lucky. Why did I get lucky? Because there was a housing project in the area that I grew up in, and there were a lot of African American kids that I grew up with. And so it was very natural for me. I didn't really see their color. Look, I'm not saying that everybody in my family was like that. Okay, there were racists in my family. I'm not. Who's going to bullshit you? Okay. And my uncle, who ran a motorcycle shop, his partner was an African American Vietnam veteran who I adored. Okay, I love the guy. And so for me, I'm a product of my environment, right? When I left law school, I joined the National Mentoring Program, and I took a black kid from the Bronx who basically couldn't read. Okay, he was 13 years old. Okay, he wanted to choke the people in the public school system in New York. I got him some tutors. I got him some money. I paid for his education to go to a private Catholic school.
Damn.
Taught him how to read, kicked his ass. It was one day, you'll love this story. I'm in my Honda Civic because I had no money, but I'm paying for this kid's tuition, and his grades suck, and I'm ready to choke him. And then there's a guy coming over to we're on Fordham Road in the Bronx. Okay, I'm Italian.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit, right?
I
I'm on
got
Fordham
you.
Road in the Bronx, and the guy's coming over to squeegee my thing. I got out of the car. I took the seatbelt off, got out of the car. I said, "Get the fuck away from my car." Okay. And I said, "You get the fuck out of it." Then I looked at Errol. I said, "If I ever see you do something like that, I'm going to choke you. Okay. You're going to get yourself a real job, and you're going to fortify yourself with self-esteem and a real experience." So Mr. Errol is now 44. Okay. And he's, living in Hudson Yards, and he runs all the security for these buildings down there. He's got 3 beautiful kids. Okay. And he's one of my bros, he's one of my people. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so when I got the message from you, and you were starting some shit with me, which of course I enjoy, and then I'm reading, I said, I got to read this guy's book. Okay. And that's where it's at, Vernon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where it's at. Okay. That's where it's at. So you could see me as a cracker, okay, or as an arrogant prick, okay, because of the impression, but I may not be that. You follow me? And I think that's everybody in America right now. Okay. Let's dial it down. Let's meet each other where we live, and let's get to know each other better. And guess what we're going to find out? We have way less differences than impressed upon in social media or impressed upon in the networks. Do I have that right, Vernon?
Well, Mooch, you're right. And the thing of it is that I owed you that reach out because of how I felt inside. I owed you that because I felt one way about you. And then seeing a different side of you and seeing a new, just this latest new side, it completely, I did a 180.
But I got it wrong. Trump, look, people be pissed at me. I don't give it. He's a racist, man. I'm just letting you know. You could like Trump or dislike Trump. I'm just telling you he is. Okay.
I'm trying to be nice on this thing when it comes to number 45. I really am, and I'm going to continue to do that. I know where I am and where I stand as far as that whole thing. Um, and it's because I have
He's
friend I
Bernie.
have
Bernie, he's a bad dude. I don't even know why these black guys are voting for him. I'm like, all right, guys, you don't even
dude.
understand you don't even understand what the hell's going on. And I got it because he's a great manipulator. He's a great salesman, but he's not a healing guy. Okay, healing people love people. Healing people bring people together. Healing people don't try to divide and conquer. You understand what I'm saying? The country's imperfect, Vernon. The country's imperfect. But what did Lincoln say about the country? Okay, it's an imperfect union, but it's up to us to make it more
Yes,
perfect. It's up to us to make it better. What did King say? Right? We got to judge ourselves by the character, not the skin color, right?
yeah,
There's no king without Jackie.
no,
There's no king without Jackie. And what did Branch Rickey say to Jackie? I need you to be strong. He goes, you mean me to be strong? You mean to fight these racists on the field? He goes, no, I need you to be stronger than that. To not fight the racists on the
tonight
field.
fight, yeah, absolutely.
Right?
And that's one of
Right?
the movies that I have on my DVR that I watch all the time. And the thing of it is that
I tried to produce that movie. I bought the rights to opening day. Jackie's one of my heroes, and I met with Rachel Robinson, okay, who's going to be 102 years old this year, this July, and she told me I was too white to make that movie, and I was upset at the time,
yeah,
okay, and that was maybe 10, 12 years ago, and so she said, I'm not going to make the movie with you too white, and I said, okay. I was upset at the time, and then I met with a couple of my buddies who were black, and we had the conversation. I said, you know what, Rachel's probably right. I probably am too white because I haven't been in the world from the prism of what Jackie actually saw and what Jackie had to actually deal with. But anyway, I didn't produce the movie. The movie turned out phenomenal, and it was very. She loved it, which is more important than everything else. But that's where we're at, Vernon. That's where we're at, and that's why I wanted to bring you on. And I'm grateful for you for coming on, and I'm grateful. There's an unconditionality of spirit in your personality, and you got to drive like I've never seen. I mean, like if I'm having a bad day, I got to think about what would Vernon Turner do in terms of what's going on in my day. Because of some of the things you've experienced. So
well, I tell you, Mooch. Again, if I didn't live it, I wouldn't believe it myself. The things that I went through, and here's the crazy part. And you had already mentioned it. I couldn't do any of that stuff by myself. Just keeping it real. I had to have my army of angels. I had to have my Pop Warner League football coach Bill Thatcher. I had to have my high school football coach Fred Oliveri. I had to have my college football coach Ken Sparks and Dennis Webb. And I had to have these cats. I had to have the Sam Weish of Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the George Stewarts and the Marvin Levy's. I mean, all in the heck, Frank Gans with the Detroit Lions. I mean, I had to have these cats to be the person that I'm now am today in regards to never quitting and having pushing beyond those limits that you think those limits are for you. And again, that was one of the reasons why that I got inspired to write the second book. The first book was my autobiography, The Next Level of Game I had to play. I just had a whole lot of crap inside I had to get out. I just had to get out that I never shared with anybody. And once I did that, then I had to take it up another notch. And I don't consider myself a very astute individual. I'm a street guy. Okay. I learn on the go. Pretty much everything that I've done, I've learned on the go. I learned how to enunciate most words on the go. Again, I
no, I get
struggled.
it.
I struggled reading when I was in school. I used to be embarrassed to read out loud in school. So I've come across a lot of barriers, and I have so many lessons learned. That's the reason why I am sharing it the way I'm sharing it. And to be a part of your podcast, now your circle, man, it means a lot to me, man, because I have the utmost respect for you, my brother. I really do, and
Well,
I
I
think you're
appreciate
doing
that.
it.
Sweetie, the feeling is mutual. All right, so we're at the point in the podcast where I call it the 5 famous words. Okay, we dug through your book. We have 5 words, and you're going to give me a word back, okay, or a sentence. I'm going to say something to you. first thing that comes to Vernon Turner's mind, I want you to give me. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I say the word family. What do you say?
Strength.
Okay, I say the word resilience.
My mom.
Okay, that's a great line. You know, when I hear the word resilience, I hear, you get, I don't know what it is. Conditioning. You got to be in it. I say the word extraordinary, which you represent. What does that mean to you?
Extraordinary. You have to. Okay, I'm going to tell you one of my quotes. I am not afraid of failing, but
Right.
I am absolutely
Amen.
terrified of not trying.
Right. Amen. I love that. Okay, I say the word relentless. All you got to do is watch you in the NFL. But what do you say? When I say relentless, what do you say?
No, regardless of the circumstances, I'm never going to quit, ever, no matter what. No matter the obstacles, I'm never going to quit. And I've been like that all my life. And that's the reason why
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's having a strong heart. All right. What about the two words Vernon Turner? I say Vernon Turner. What do you say?
A work in progress, a um, someone who owes big time. And I want to leave this world with empty pockets. I truly do. I've gotten a lot of tools, a lot of opportunities, a lot of things given to me, and I want to give it back. And I want to have empty pockets when I get with my mom and my dad and my sis and my grandma up there. I want to have empty pockets.
See, when I hear Vernon Turner, I think good soul. That's what I think. All right, so you got to promise me something. You have a new book coming out later this year. You got to come back on my podcast to discuss it. You willing to do that?
Are you kidding me, man? I got to fly back out home to New York to come and chop it up with you, man, face to face.
All right, you got it.
Absolutely.
You come in studio anytime you want, my brother. All right. Well,
Okay.
I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate you coming on. The title of this book is Beyond the Limits: Finding My Purpose. It's by a legendary guy, former professional football player, Vernon Turner. Thank you so much for joining us on Open Book today.
Thanks a lot, Mooch. God bless you, my brother. I
Vernon,
love you, bro.
while we're waiting for this.